At the dawn of the 20th century, Nigeria, a land of diverse cultures and traditions, found itself under the firm grip of British colonial rule. The year 1914 marked the official amalgamation of the northern and southern protectorates, solidifying British dominance over this vast territory. This period witnessed the imposition of British administrative systems, economic policies, and social ideologies on the indigenous population. The traditional power structures and ways of life of various ethnic groups were increasingly challenged by the pervasive influence of the colonial administration. The British sought to exert control over the economic resources of Nigeria, primarily focusing on cash crops such as palm oil, cocoa, and groundnuts. This led to the introduction of new agricultural practices, often at the expense of traditional farming methods. The British also established a system of taxation, requiring Nigerians to pay taxes in cash, which further integrated them into the colonial economy. This transition, however, was not without its challenges, as it disrupted traditional economic patterns and created new forms of dependency on the colonial system. The introduction of Western education, though limited in its reach, had a profound impact on Nigerian society. It created a new elite class, often educated in mission schools, who were exposed to Western ideas and values. This new class played a significant role in shaping the political and social landscape of colonial Nigeria, often acting as intermediaries between the colonial administration and the local population. However, this Western education also created a divide within Nigerian society, separating the educated elite from the majority of the population who remained rooted in their traditional beliefs and practices. The social fabric of Nigerian society underwent significant transformations during this period. The introduction of Christianity and the suppression of certain traditional practices led to changes in religious beliefs and practices. The colonial administration also attempted to impose its own legal system, which often clashed with traditional legal customs. The imposition of these new systems and ideologies created tensions and resistance among the indigenous population, who sought to preserve their cultural identity and autonomy in the face of colonial domination. The Igbo people, predominantly residing in the southeastern region of Nigeria, boasted a rich history and a complex social structure long before the arrival of the British. Known for their entrepreneurial spirit, the Igbo were active traders engaging in both local and long-distance commerce. Their society was decentralized, characterized by a system of governance based on age grades, kinship ties, and village assemblies. These institutions ensured a degree of autonomy and self-governance within Igbo communities, fostering a strong sense of communal identity and collective responsibility. The arrival of the British, however, disrupted this traditional balance of power. The imposition of a centralized administrative system headed by appointed officials often unfamiliar with Igbo customs eroded the authority of traditional leaders and institutions. The British often relied on a system of indirect rule, empowering certain individuals to act as intermediaries between the colonial administration and the local population. This approach, however, often led to the appointment of individuals who were not respected by the communities they were meant to govern, creating resentment and undermining the legitimacy of the colonial administration. The introduction of a cash economy further disrupted traditional economic patterns. The emphasis on cash crops, such as palm oil and kernels, led to changes in agricultural practices and land tenure systems. The Igbo, known for their adaptability, were quick to embrace these new economic opportunities. However, the shift towards cash crops also led to increased competition for land and resources, creating tensions within communities and exacerbating existing social inequalities. Despite the challenges posed by colonial rule, the Igbo people demonstrated remarkable resilience. They adapted to the changing circumstances, finding ways to preserve their cultural traditions while navigating the complexities of the colonial system. The Igbo women, in particular, played a pivotal role in maintaining social cohesion and resisting colonial policies that threatened their traditional way of life. Their story is a testament to the strength and resilience of African women in the face of adversity.
In the intricate tapestry of pre-colonial Igbo society, women held a position of significant influence, their roles extending far beyond the confines of the domestic sphere. They were not merely wives and mothers, but also active participants in the economic, political, and religious life of their communities. Their contributions were vital to the functioning and prosperity of Igbo society, earning them a level of respect and autonomy rarely seen in other patriarchal cultures.
Igbo women were the backbone of the agricultural economy, responsible for cultivating the land, planting and harvesting crops, and ensuring the food security of their families and communities. They were also skilled traders, controlling the local markets and engaging in long-distance trade, often traveling for miles to buy and sell goods. Their economic prowess earned them a degree of financial independence, allowing them to own property, manage their own finances, and contribute significantly to the economic well-being of their households.
Beyond their economic contributions, Igbo women wielded considerable political influence. They held leadership positions within women's organizations, which played a crucial role in village governance. These organizations, often organized along age grades or lineages, had the authority to mediate disputes, advocate for the needs of women, and influence decision-making processes within their communities. Their voices were heard and respected, ensuring that the concerns of women were not overlooked.
Moreover, Igbo women played vital roles in the religious and spiritual life of their communities. They held positions as priestesses, diviners, and custodians of traditional knowledge and rituals. They were responsible for maintaining the spiritual well-being of their communities, performing ceremonies, offering sacrifices, and upholding the moral fabric of Igbo society. Their spiritual authority commanded respect and deference, further solidifying their position as influential figures within their communities.
Section 4. The Seeds of Discontent, Colonial Policies, and Their Impact. The arrival of British colonial rule in Igboland brought about significant changes that disrupted the delicate balance of traditional Igbo society, particularly impacting the lives of women. The imposition of new administrative structures, economic policies, and social ideologies created tensions and resentment, gradually sowing the seeds of discontent that would eventually erupt in open resistance.
One of the most significant changes introduced by the British was the system of indirect rule, which sought to govern the Igbo through appointed chiefs, often referred to as warrant chiefs.
These chiefs, however, were often chosen not for their traditional authority or leadership qualities, but for their willingness to cooperate with the colonial administration.
This undermined the legitimacy of traditional leadership structures and created resentment among the Igbo people, who felt that their customs and traditions were being disregarded. The introduction of a cash economy and the imposition of taxes further exacerbated these tensions. The British demanded that taxes be paid in cash, forcing the Igbo people to participate in the colonial economy by producing cash crops such as palm oil and kernels.
And while this created new economic opportunities for some, it also led to increased competition for land and resources, disrupting traditional agricultural practices and exacerbating existing social inequalities.
Moreover, the British sought to suppress certain Igbo cultural practices that they deemed barbaric or uncivilized. This included traditional religious practices, rituals, and forms of social organization. This cultural imposition was deeply resented by the Igbo people, who saw it as an attack on their identity and way of life.
The suppression of traditional institutions and the imposition of Western values created a sense of cultural dispossession and fueled a growing desire for autonomy and self-determination.
Section 5. The Warrant Chiefs, Symbols of Colonial Authority. Central to the simmering discontent in Igboland was the role of the warrant chiefs, figures who became potent symbols of colonial authority and its perceived injustices. Appointed by the British to facilitate indirect rule, these chiefs often lacked the traditional legitimacy and respect accorded to their pre-colonial counterparts.
This disconnect between the colonial administration and the governed population fueled resentment and laid the groundwork for the Aba Women's Riot. The warrant chiefs, tasked with enforcing colonial policies, found themselves in a precarious position.
Often caught between the demands of the British and the realities of Igbo society, they faced accusations of corruption, abuse of power, and exploitation. The chiefs' role in tax collection particularly made them targets of popular anger. The imposition of taxes on a population accustomed to a system of communal contributions was deeply unpopular, and the warrant chiefs responsible for collecting these taxes bore the brunt of the people's frustration.
Furthermore, the warrant chiefs' association with the colonial administration led to the erosion of traditional forms of governance and dispute resolution.
The authority of village elders and women's organizations, institutions that had long played a crucial role in maintaining social order, was undermined as the warrant chiefs assumed greater control over local affairs. This shift in power dynamics, coupled with the perception that the warrant chiefs were more interested in serving their own interests than those of their communities, further fueled resentment and created a fertile ground for resistance.
The warrant chiefs, despite their attempts to mediate between the colonial administration and the Igbo population, became symbols of oppression and exploitation. Their actions, often perceived as a betrayal of their own people, contributed to the growing unrest and set the stage for the dramatic events of the Aba Women's Riot.
Section 6. The Rumour Mill, Taxation and the Spark of Rebellion. In the autumn of 1929, a rumour swept through the bustling markets and close-knit communities of southeastern Nigeria, igniting a firestorm of anger and resentment that would culminate in the historic Aba Women's Riot. This rumour, centered around the impending taxation of women, tapped into a deep well of frustration with colonial policies and the perceived injustices inflicted upon the Igbo people.
Although the colonial administration vehemently denied any intention of taxing women, the rumour spread like wildfire, fueled by existing grievances and a deep-seated distrust of the colonial government.
The rumor of women's taxation was particularly inflammatory because it struck at the very heart of Igbo society, threatening to undermine the economic and social standing of women. In Igbo culture, women had long enjoyed a degree of economic independence and played a vital role in the marketplace.
The prospect of being taxed, particularly when they had no formal representation in the colonial administration, was seen as a direct attack on their hard-won autonomy and economic power. The rumour also tapped into a broader sense of discontent with the warrant chiefs, who were seen as instruments of colonial oppression. The chiefs, tasked with compiling lists of taxable adults, including women, became the focal point of popular anger.
The perception that they were colluding with the colonial administration to exploit the Igbo people for their own gain fueled the flames of rebellion.
The rumour of women's taxation, although ultimately unfounded, acted as the catalyst for the Aba Women's Riot. It brought to the surface long-simmering grievances over economic hardship, political marginalization, and cultural insensitivity, transforming a local incident into a mass movement that would challenge the very foundations of colonial rule. Section 7. The women rise, a tide of protest in two waves. The Aba Women's Riot, a testament to the collective power of women's anger and solidarity, unfolded in two dramatic waves, each marked by distinct tactics and escalating confrontations with colonial authorities. The first wave, ignited by the rumor of women's taxation, swept through the region in late November 1929, mobilizing thousands of women in a display of collective defiance that shook the foundations of colonial rule.
The initial protests erupted in the town of Oloko, where a woman named Nwanyerwa, engaged in a heated argument with a census taker, became a symbol of resistance.
Women, utilizing their extensive social networks and traditional communication channels, mobilized rapidly, their outrage transcending ethnic and social boundaries.